as soon as you open your mouth, you're repeating histories, you're calling on others, you're appealing to proper names that are not your own. So as soon as you open your mouth, so you cannot speak. No, there's no such thing as pure improvisation. No one can do it. He says this in his interview, or in his, well, he had an interview with Ornette Coleman, and also a performance with Ornette Coleman. And he says in that interview that there's no such thing as, he's kind of says to Ornette Coleman, would you agree with me that there's no such thing as pure improvisation? We want to avoid the trap, as he calls it, between the mechanical and pure improvisation. It's kind of a false opposition. There's no such thing as pure improvisation. There's always a relation to writing, to Ornette Coleman. Ornette Coleman says something like, repetition is as natural as the rotation of the earth.
And it's hard to find. It's in like the Lays in Rock magazine
and Rock
on Rock, yeah, in Roundtable.
Yeah.
So Chris,
yeah. Well, okay. So I want to ask about the final chapter of Spectres and Marx, in which case, where there's the automatic automaton, there's technical life, and there's the prosthetic which lives, and then contrasting that, which is hugely important, with that little bit in Rogues, that before you get Techne, Nomos, and the third, which I forget, you have the sorry,
is it Topos?
Could be Topos. Before Techne, with Physis, then Techne, Topos, and Nomos, and then within that a mechanical iterability, and I think there's something imbued within in his conception of life, call it that, crudely, which I want to ask you about, and I want to make then the instant comparison, and this is very unorthodox with Jean-Luc Nancy, who will tell us profusely that, you know, life is rendered as Techne. Very explicitly he makes that point. He himself, you know, he is as much, you know, the technical machine with his heart that he is quite clearly himself. I mean, so it's a very interesting point, but, you know, just if you could just speak to that sort of.
Well, one response is to say that for Derrida, there's no such thing as direct experience of life which isn't technologized. So even the very notion of live comes to us because of recording apparatus. That we would not have this notion of live and direct were it not for its being relayed by technology, and technology is making that claim that it can close a temporal and spatial gap between what's being recorded and our experiencing it, such that we experience it in real time, as it were. So there's no such thing as a non-technologized live Derrida. Now what that relation that has to life, because I didn't get your question about life. What was your question about life?
Just say what Chris is thinking about what his question was, which is, you see, there's
It's very well touched.
there's no life that's not technologized, which is that's just to say there's no life that is separate and independent from the mediation of writing. So that's what he means by technology. He means writing. It's not a question of the historically specific invention of the camera.
Right.
It's
Right. Yeah.
right, because that's the kind of move that he does in Glab when he says something like there is no natural mother, and then speak to him around and say, what do you mean by that? And he gives justification of things like IVF and that sort of thing. So you can't say that's a historically specific thing. You're saying there's no natural mother, this must be true before the invention of IVF. So if there's no life that's not technologized, it must also be true before the invention of recording equipment.
Yeah.
What he's really talking about in terms of technique there is writing.
Yeah.
JP?
Yeah, just a question in relation to Jonathan.